The House has resumed. Call members, order of the day number 1.
Summary Offences, possession of high-powered laser pointers amendment bill, third reading.
I move...
No, order. Mr
Speaker.
Dr Cam Calder.
Thank you, Mr Speaker. I move that the Summary Offences Possession of High-Power Laser Pointers Amendment Bill be now read a third time. Mr Speaker, it's a huge pleasure to be actually speaking in the House a mere hour and 50 minutes after my valedictory speech. It was something I didn't expect I could do, and it doesn't betoken a comeback. No, it doesn't betoken a comeback. It merely betokens my delight and appreciation at being able to introduce for the third reading a bill that has been a long time in gestation. And I have to acknowledge at this stage the support this bill has received across the House. It has been unanimously supported by my colleagues across the House. Mr Twyford was one of those to support it. I didn't see him in the post-gathering celebrations, but he would have been welcome had he not been so busy. And as would my colleague here from New Zealand First, who's sitting in his leader's position at the moment. But, Mr Speaker, it is a pleasure to be at this stage, the third reading of the Summary Offences Possession of High-Powered Laser Pointers Amendment Bill. And those who watch the parliamentary television will have been aware that this bill, there was a lot of debate about it at the committee stage. I believe Mr O'Rourke was part of that debate. Mr Prosser certainly was part of that debate and spoke fulsomely in favour of the said bill. He's only human, and it was the right thing to do, because this bill is small and perfectly formed and will actually significantly increase the safety of all of us who travel by air in New Zealand. We've got an excellent airline, Air New Zealand, and I was privileged to go along to their annual parliamentary gathering last night. Once again, they surpassed themselves in the excellence of their presentation, and in fact they're doing very well on the world stage. Something like this in New Zealand will improve the safety. Now, legislation doesn't stop idiots behaving idiotically. We know that. However, the fact that somebody won't be able to go out and stuff a laser pointer, a high-powered laser pointer, which many speakers in the House did point out are actually weapons in previous speeches in this House, in their pocket and expect to get away with it, will mean it will have a preventative aspect. I first became aware of the dangers of laser pointers in a sporting occasion, Mr Speaker, strange as it may be to report. A sporting occasion, 1997, in Montpellier. And what was the occasion, I hear you ask? It was the World Pétanque Championships. And what was happening? Some recidivists in the audience were trying to put off some of the favoured players by shining the laser pointers in their eyes. And even those of us who aren't partial to the beautiful game normally, there aren't many people in New Zealand who are totally immune to the delights of football, but many of us were watching the World Cup, and we saw the Russian goalie. It was shown all around the world, the Russian goalie who was attempting to be in full modus operandi for deflecting a corner kick, was in fact struck in the face, in his eyes, by a laser pointer. Shortly afterwards, there was another attempt on the goal, and he failed to repel that. I mean, that's just a sporting occasion. But, of course, it's never just a sporting occasion, but it's not talking about loss of life. More importantly is the potential loss of life that could come from laser pointers being used against the pilots of aircraft. And many people in the House, many colleagues across the House have pointed out the dangers of this. And I believe that this bill will have a preventative effect and reduce the chances of this happening. I mean, last year there were 119 reported laser attacks on aircraft and helicopters, and this point was made by the New Zealand Airline Pilots Association. Those are just the ones that were reported in New Zealand, because foreign aircraft would report their strikes to their authorities back home. So this bill Mr. Speaker, is timely. This bill, Mr. Speaker, is necessary. It will be a valued legislative tool to improve public safety in our country. I appreciate the widespread support it has received to date in the House, and I commend this bill to the House.
The question is that the motion be agreed to.
Mr. Speaker.
Phil Twyford.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I think it's well known that Labor members